At FGCU, we value service learning, which is different than volunteerism. One of the frameworks that we work with to help students understand how service learning is different than volunteerism is the active citizen continuum. Here during this video, we're going to walk you through the 4 stages of the active citizen continuum, all the way from member to active citizen. Come with me. In our first stage, the member stage, it's important to remember that the entire active citizen continuum goes from left to right, but it doesn't necessarily mean bad to good. We're really looking at levels of self-awareness and helping students and ourselves understand our level of engagement in the community. In the member stage, we see individuals who really don't have a self-awareness about their impact in the world around them or in society. So these are individuals who are just living their life. They are driving how they want to drive without realizing the impact of how that really affects people around them. They're shopping and buying things without realizing the impact on everyone else around them on those actions. So in this stage, we always say, as long as you are breathing, you are a member. We are all members of society. And in fact, sometimes we have students who tell us very openly that their life doesn't necessarily impact other people, that they stick to themselves and they do what they feel comfortable doing. But we help them understand every action that they have does have an impact in others. Even individuals who say, I relax at home and I watch Netflix, that doesn't impact anyone else. I always say, hey, what does Netflix make the most of? Netflix makes whatever you watch. So even by watching Netflix, you are impacting what the rest of the world is like, and in this case, what Netflix makes more of. So even in the member stage, yes, individuals are impacting the world around them, but they don't have a level of awareness about that. So that's our first stage, is the member stage. Let's look at the second stage. Now our second stage is the volunteer stage. This is really a first stage of action. This is where students are taking intentional action of some kind outside of their own bubble. So in that member stage, they're living in their bubble without a level of awareness about the society around them or how their life impacts that society. But in volunteer stage, they're starting to intentionally touch the world outside of their lives. So in this stage, you typically see individuals who go out and they do service. Maybe a friend or a roommate invited them to go do service with them, but it doesn't suddenly make them an expert in the areas that they're touching. So think of serving at a food pantry on a Saturday morning. By doing 4 hours of service at a food pantry, that student doesn't suddenly walk away as an expert in food insecurity or food deserts or anything like that, but they did something beyond their 4 walls of their world and their bubble. And so in this stage, it is a stage of intentional action. They went out and they did something, but they're not necessarily experts on that topic. And so this is typically where we see individuals in middle school, high school, when they're out doing service that is just volunteerism, not yet service learning. This is typically the stage that we see students in. It's also typically the stage we see students enter FGCU in. So now that we've looked at the member stage and the volunteer stage, walk with me as we go into the third stage of conscientious citizenship. In our conscientious citizenship stage, or the third stage of the active citizen continuum, we start to see students dive into the root issues behind the topics that they're touching. So in our food pantry example, they may have gone out in the volunteer stage to do service, to actually pack food or hand food to individuals who are hungry. But in the conscientious citizenship stage, they are starting to ask those deeper questions. Why do we need a food pantry? Why is this important? We've even, part of what we do in the Office of Service Learning and Civic Engagement is we get students to reflect about their volunteer experiences and their service. And during this stage, reflection and asking questions is so important. This is also where service becomes service learning, because so many times at FGCU, we are working to connect their service experiences to what they're studying in their classes. And it's in the classroom that we can often go into these deeper root level questions of why are these things needed? Why are these services needed? Why is your organization important to the community? These are great questions for students in this stage to start to ask and dive into. So this is not necessarily a stage of action. We saw action in the volunteer stage. This is a stage of learning. And so they are taking what they touched in the volunteer stage and starting to really study it, ask questions, talk to you as the experts, read about it in their classes and learn about it from their faculty members, and really start to dive into what are the roots of these issues that they're seeing, and maybe how can they even start to create or think about how the world might be different if everyone looked at the root of these issues. So this is a stage of learning in the conscientious citizenship stage. Let's go into the final stage, the fourth stage of the active citizen continuum. In our fourth stage, we finally made it to the active citizen stage, really the namesake of this continuum. And so in this stage, we've done something in the volunteer stage. We've touched something maybe for the first time. In that conscientious citizen stage, we asked those deeper level questions. We started to get to the roots. And like I said, a lot of times in that third stage, students start to have ideas about solutions. So that's where we get to this fourth stage, the active citizen stage, where they can actually implement solutions to the issues that they're seeing in society. And a lot of times those solutions are things that they can work with you on. And so in this stage, we're looking at students who are not just maybe doing a beach cleanup, which would be in the volunteer stage, but they're starting to think about why aren't beach cleanups preventing litter on the beach every week? Why is it that when I go back every Saturday, there is litter there again? How do we prevent that? And so maybe in that third stage of conscientious citizen stage, they started to say, oh, you know what? The experts are telling me that there aren't enough trash receptacles. Or the experts are telling me that people really are ignorant about what happens to trash that's left on the beach. And so they learned in that conscientious citizen stage, and now they're ready to take deeper root level action to actually prevent the issue from even being an issue. So maybe instead of doing a beach cleanup, we have a team of students that stand along the walkway as individuals go from the parking lot to the beach, and they educate them. They help people not be ignorant about what happens to the trash. They make sure that everyone walking onto that beach understands that when you drop a piece of litter on the beach, it doesn't just dissolve in the water. They start to create bigger campaigns, organizations. They put together collaborative efforts in the community. In this active citizen stage, you start to see results that you haven't seen from just your regular volunteer opportunities that you have every Saturday, every Friday, whatever that looks like with our students. But instead, you can work with our students to really get to the roots of some of these issues. And so we've had students do things like the beach cleanup example, where they put together an educational campaign in this stage. We've also had students who say, hey, I really want to tackle mental health, and I know that there are great mental health services, so I'm not going to redo that. But what I do know, we've had students say, what I do know is that there's a stigma around using mental health services. And so I'm going to tackle the stigma that's there. And so they will put together big campaigns that really haven't existed before, either at FGCU or in the region, to get people to understand it's okay to use the mental health services that are around, and that's an okay thing. So whatever the topic, as our students walk through each of the four stages of this continuum, they really get to this amazing last stage where they're creating solutions that just haven't existed before. Or they're building on solutions that maybe have been tried before but haven't been as successful. And so you get to come along with our faculty and our students in that process to help create those solutions. So we just love this last stage. This is where we hope that every student gets. And as a co-educator, we hope that you can help students walk through this process. So you can see in the active citizen continuum, this four-stage model is not about, again, the beginning stage being that you're a bad person and the last stage being that you're an amazing person. It's really about levels of self-awareness. And actually, students can walk from that left side, that first part of the continuum, all the way through by issue. So one issue, maybe it's environmental awareness, they can walk all the way through, but maybe in a different issue, they are still in the member stage, and that's okay. It gives us something to work on every single time. So this active citizen continuum is something we live by. It's a framework that we really want you to understand as you work with our students. And we know that you are co-educators, so the more you understand this full framework, the more you can help us achieve our goals with our students and our learning. Thank you.